Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rouse. Jataka number 168. Sakunagi Jataka. A quail was in his feeding ground, etc. This story the master told at Jetavana monastery, about his meaning in the bird teaching. One day the master called the monks, saying, "When you seek alms, monks, keep each to your own district." And repeating that sutta from the Mahavagga, which suited the occasion, he added, "But wait a moment. Formerly others even in the form of animals refused to keep to their own districts. And by poaching on other people's areas, they fell into the way of their enemies, and then by their own intelligence and resource got free from the hands of their enemies." With these words he told an old story. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the bodhisattva came into the world as a young quail. He got his food in hopping about over the clods left after ploughing. One day he thought he would leave his feeding ground and try another. So off he flew to the edge of a forest. As he picked up his food there, a falcon watched him, and attacking him fiercely, he caught him fast. Held prisoner by this falcon, our quail made his moan. "Ah! How very unlucky I am! How little sense I have! I'm poaching on someone else's area. Oh, that I had kept to my own place, where my fathers were before me. Then this falcon would have been no match for me, I mean if he had come to fight." "Why, quail," says the falcon, "what's your own ground, where your fathers fed before you?" "A ploughed field all covered with mounds." At this the falcon, relaxing his strength, let go. "Off with you, go, I leave you, quail. But you won't escape me, even there." The quail flew back and perched on an immense mound, and there he stood, calling, "Come along now, falcon." Straining every nerve, and his both wings, down swooped the falcon fiercely upon our quail. "Here he comes with a vengeance," thought the quail. And as soon as he saw him in full speed, just moved over and let him strike full against the mound of earth. The falcon could not stop himself, and struck his breast against the earth. This broke his heart, and he fell dead with his eyes starting out of his head. When this tale had been told, the master added, "Thus you see, monks, how even animals fall into their enemies' hands by leaving their own place. But when they keep to it, they conquer their enemies. Therefore you do take care not to leave your own place and intrude upon another's. O monks, those who leave their blissful inner self-awareness, Mara, Deathlord, who makes all creatures go round and round in birth, death, rebirth cycles, finds a door, Mara gets a foothold. What is foreign ground, monks, and what is the wrong dwelling for a monk? I mean the dwelling in pleasures of senses of body. What are these? The lusts of the eye, the lusts of the ear, the lusts of the nose, the lusts of tongue, the lusts of the touch, and the lusts of the mind. This, monks, is the wrong dwelling for a monk." Then being perfectly enlightened he repeated the first stanza. A quail was in his feeding ground, when, swooping from on high, a falcon came. But so it fell he came to death by that. When he had thus perished, out came the quail, exclaiming, "I have seen the back of my enemy." And perching upon his enemy's breast, he gave voice to his happiness in the words of the second stanza. Now I rejoice at my success. A clever plan I found, to rid me of my enemy by keeping my own ground. This discourse came at an end. The master explained the truths and identified the birth. At the conclusion of the truths, many monks were established in the paths or their fruition. Devadatta was the falcon of those days, and the quail was I myself. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 169. Araka Jataka. The heart that boundless pity feels, etc. This story the master told at Jetavana monastery, about the scripture on loving kindness. On one occasion the master thus addressed the brotherhood. Brethren, charity practiced with all devotion of thought, meditated upon, increased, made a vehicle of progress, made your one object, practiced, well begun, may be expected to produce 11 blessings. What are these 11? Happy he sleeps and happy he awakes. He sees no bad dreams. Men love him. Spirits guard him. Fire, poison, and sword come not near him. Quickly he becomes absorbed in mind. His look grows calm. He dies undismayed. Without need of further wisdom he goes to Brahma's upper heaven. Charity, brethren, practiced with renunciation of one's wishes, and so on, may be expected to produce these 11 blessings. Praising the charity which holds these 11 blessings. Brethren, a brother should show kindness to all creatures, whether expressly commanded or not. He should be a friend to the friendly, yes, a friend to the unfriendly, and a friend to the indifferent. Thus to all without distinction, whether expressly asked or not, he should show charity. He should show sympathy with joy and sorrow and practice equanimity. He should do his work by means of the 4 excellences. By so doing he will go to Brahma's upper heaven even without path or fruit. Wise men of old, by cultivating charity for 7 years, have lived in Brahma's upper heaven 7 ages, each with its one period to grow and one to decline. And he told him a story of the past. Once upon a time, in a former age, the bodhisattva was born in a Brahman's family. When he grew up, he gave up his lusts and embraced the religious life, and attained the 4 excellences. His name was Araka, and he became a teacher, and lived in Himalaya region, with a large body of followers. Addressing his band of sages, he said, "A hermit must show charity, sympathetic must he be both in joy and sorrow, and full of equanimity. For this thought of charity attained by resolve prepares him for Brahma's upper heaven." And explaining the blessing of charity, he repeated these verses. The heart that boundless pity feels for all things that have birth. In heaven above, in realms below, and on this middle earth. Filled full of pity infinite, infinite charity. In such a heart nothing narrow or confined can ever be. Thus did the Bodhisattva discourse to his pupils on the practice of charity and its blessings. And without a moment's interruption of his mystic trance, he was born in the heaven of Brahma, and for 7 ages, each with his time to grow and decline, he came no more to this world. After finishing this discourse, the master identified the birth. The band of sages of that time are now the Buddha's followers. And I myself am he that was the teacher Araka. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 170. Khuddhaka Jataka. This Khuddhaka birth will be given below in the Maha Omega birth, Jataka. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 171. Kalyana Dharma Jataka. O King, when people hail us, etc. This story the master told in Jetavana monastery, about a deaf mother-in-law. It is said that there was an official in Shravasti city, one of the faith, a true believer, who had fled to the 3 refuges, gifted with the 5 virtues. One day he set out to listen to the master at Jetavana monastery, carrying plenty ghee and sweets of all sorts, flowers, perfumes, etc. At the same time, his wife's mother started to visit her daughter, and brought a present of solid food and porridge. She was a little hard of hearing. After dinner, one feels a little drowsy after a meal, she said, by way of keeping herself awake. Well, and does your husband live happily with you? Do you agree together? Why, mother, what a thing to ask. You could hardly find a holy hermit who is so good and virtuous as he. The good woman did not quite take in what her daughter said, but she caught the word hermit and cries she, "Oh dear, why has your husband turned hermit?" And a great fuss she made. Everybody who lived in that house heard it, and cried, "The official has turned hermit." People heard the noise, and a crowd gathered at the door to find out what it was. "The official who lives here has turned hermit," was all they heard. Our official listened to the Buddha's sermon, then left the monastery to return to the city. Midway a man met him, who cried, "Why, master, they do say you've turned hermit, and all your family and servants are crying at home." Then these thoughts passed through his mind. People say I have turned hermit when I have done nothing of the kind. A lucky speech must not be neglected. This day a hermit I must be. Then and there he turned right round, and went back to the master. "You paid your visit to the Buddha," the master said, and went away. "What brings you back here again?" The man told him about it, adding, "A great speech, sir, must not be neglected. So here I am, and I wish to become a hermit." Then he received the lesser and the greater holy order of disciples, and lived a good life. And very soon he attained to sainthood. The story got known amongst the community. One day they were discussing it all together in the Hall of Truth, on this fashion. "I say, friend, official so and so took holy order of disciples because he said, 'A great speech must never be neglected,' and now he has attained to sainthood." The master came in and wanted to know what it was they were talking about. They told him. Said he, "Brethren, wise men in days long past also entered the brotherhood because they said that a lucky speech must never be neglected." And then he told them a story of olden days. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the bodhisattva came into the world as a rich merchant's son. And when he grew up and his father died, he took his father's place. Once he had gone to pay his respects to the king, and his mother-in-law came on a visit to her daughter. She was a little hard of hearing, and all happened just as it has happened now. The husband was on his way back from paying his respects to the king, when he was met by a man, who said, "They say you have turned hermit, and there's such a hullabaloo in your house." The bodhisattva, thinking that lucky words must never be neglected, turned right round and went back to the king. The king asked what brought him back again. "My lord," said he, "all my people are bewailing me, as I am told, because I have turned hermit, when I have done nothing of the kind. But lucky words must not be neglected, and a hermit I will be. I crave your permission to become a hermit." And he explained the circumstances by the following verses. "O king, when people hail us by the name of holy, we must make our acts the same. We must not waver nor fall short of it. We must take up the yoke for very shame. O king, this name has been gave me. Today they cry how holy I must be. Therefore I would a hermit live and die. I have no taste for joy and revelry." Thus did the bodhisattva ask the king's leave to embrace the religious life. Then he went away to the Himalayas, and becoming an ascetic he cultivated the faculties and the attainments and at last came to Brahma's upper heaven. The master, having ended this discourse, identified the birth. Ananda was king in those days, and I myself was the rich Benares merchant.